Yeah, it's too bad they didn't see you anyway.
I know, I know. I know. So then we scheduled it. So I'm like, well, at least I got that done.
Yeah, right.
Great. So I sent Chris a text. So we'll see here.
Well, that'll be fun if he just, hops in. I would expect that. I feel like, oh, help me. Maybe one of you saw the post too. He was doing, you get pulled behind a boat, you rise up in the air,
Oh,
you've got like a
Parasail?
parachute,
like a
parasailing.
Yeah.
parasailing, I think it is. Yes.
Yes. And,
Oh,
I
he
could
did
see
all that
someone saying, oh, that's not so scary. I mean, it is up high, but you're over the ocean, and I'm
Mhm.
like, but you had a partner with you.
Mm.
And he had no, uh, well, he didn't express any reluctance to go up in the air with,
Mhm.
I would say, a person of longevity. That's why they were there. It was a dream come
Okay.
true.
Oh,
I have
Yeah.
reached these number of decades, and by gummy bears, I am going to do something I've not done before. And
I
so she's
know, I
just there
know.
smiling. He's getting the picture. And I'm just like,
Oh,
I just
he's
expect
so
him to kind of
brave.
parasail
He said
in.
2 seconds.
Wonderful. By the way, is
So
it
two
going to be
seconds he'll be here.
yeah. It will be his real face, or is he gonna, like, talk like a metaverse guy? Have
Guess
you
we'll
seen
find
his
out.
his
I feel like
new
it'll be his
profile
real
picture?
face. Yeah.
It's like a sketch you would get
Oh,
at the
it
fair in years gone
is.
by. Well, they still do it, and it's like, "Heck, I like that. I'm gonna stick
right.
that
Yeah,
on."
it said, it was funny because at conferences, his picture is that cartoon character. So when he's gone to meet people, they're always like, "Is that you?" I don't know.
Oh, it's
It looks
fun.
so much like
A
him, but
guy named Steve Gurney did an aging thing on purpose, not as
Mhm.
an ageistic or ageism joke,
Oh.
but he aged his own picture, had it done with an app or something, and then his new profile picture, and I remember looking going, I I had a different just an impression, not like I had his face memorized, but I had a
Oh,
different
really?
impression of him, and
yeah.
I realized, you know what? I've got kind of an ageism thing too, where I think, I'm gonna
Mm.
talk this way. If this person seems to be in their 90s, maybe I
Right.
change the way that I speak, but I wasn't gonna speak with him. It's like,
Right.
why do I get that feeling of move more slowly or,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I think I need to accuse myself of having
Mhm.
kind of a initial reaction
Yeah.
to people in different demographics. My first
Mhm.
reaction is maybe it's negative. Maybe I think,
Mhm.
"Oh, you're a junior high kid, you probably don't care what I have to say." And it's like, well, that's bad and wrong and inaccurate and doesn't help, maybe, I need to shake it off and,
Yeah. That's
adjust
that
Mhm.
unconscious bias.
an
It
unconscious
is.
mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, which is it's great that you're aware of it because that, kind of conquering that and minimizing those thoughts that you might have, true or
Yeah.
untrue, fact or fiction, recognizing that you're doing it is kind of the
Mhm.
first step. So congratulations, Christy.
Yes, I need to have him on the show so that I can admit, "Reverend Father, I have sinned." When I saw that, I thought, "What? I thought I was getting a younger guy."
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
younger being I don't know his age compared to mine, and
Yeah.
that's another thing. I'm so different. I remember sitting in a wedding when I was about 48 or so
Mm,
and going, they are not old enough to be getting married. They're just kids. And I
mm,
thought, oh, I have reached that level.
yes.
Oh my goodness. And he parasails in.
What's
Woo!
going on, guys?
Hey, Chris.
I'm sorry. I had a I had my schedules like
Wow.
back to back. But anyways, good to see everybody.
Yes, I only invite really busy people. Oh my goodness. Yeah, what is happening? It's a beautiful day in Nebraska, says Jean.
Yes, I confirmed that. That's what I've got going on here in the Cornhusker State is
Yep.
great weather for the
That's
time
awesome.
being.
That's
Yes.
awesome. Gene, what's the temps out in your area?
Oh gosh, it's probably about 81 right now.
Wow, gotcha.
So-
All right.
And the sun is shining and
That's
humidity's low.
I think we're all a little jealous there.
Yes, because it was probably 81 when you woke up this morning at 4 a.m.
It's probably 81 at midnight.
Yeah.
It is. I think 100 it's like 105 or something. I don't know, but it's
Oh,
Oh man.
and it's
And
too much.
humidity.
Super humid too, huh?
Yep.
That's
Exactly.
why he's in the car. It's like, whoo, you might hear this whoosh sound, getting the air conditioning going again.
I know.
Oh my
I
goodness.
literally tried to keep the AC down a little bit because I didn't want to I didn't want to drown everyone out a little bit. So hopefully it's not too loud. But
Sounds
I
good.
did think about that.
No, you're perfect, actually. Oh my goodness. So Nicole says that she does when she does her podcast, they can see each other, but up to this moment, August
Yep.
2023. So now this is not an evergreen
Right.
in replay. That she does put it out audio only. So
Correct.
I'm thankful that she's stretching to do this. Jean, do you do a lot of Zoom conferences? Do you meet with people screen to screen a lot?
I do.
Yeah.
And I still haven't figured it out in terms of like, what is the best way? Mostly it's training and conference calls where we're trying to impart pretty critical information and doing it in a way that's like speaker view, but then also looking at the content I've developed. And there's people that can just move between those mediums with such grace and ease. Nicole is definitely one of them she's just kind of like making the magic happen. And I still struggle. So you're going to you see me darting my eyes all over because I don't know where to look. I don't know where to talk. So yes, this is Jean as an aging individual, I suppose.
We're all in a classroom, right? We're all in a classroom.
Yeah.
All the
Yes.
time. Yeah.
Good question, though.
I love it.
Yeah. Well, and it's different. Like approaching this show today, I thought, I just want to sit back with my little mug and drink my tea because we have been over 100 degrees several days here in the Willamette River Valley of Oregon. I can see the river right out this window. We've had chewable air. I actually wore a mask because I wanted to, not because I was going somewhere where it was required. Today it's clear again. I can see blue looking at an angle, not just straight up through a little ozone spot. So I'm grateful, always, always, always grateful for these amazing people who fight fires and do as much saving as they can. So we just seem to get a lot of wildfires because our poor little valley doesn't know what to do when we haven't had rain. So so that's where we're at today. It was a joy to walk the dog this morning.
I bet.
Oh, so but Chris, I feel like you're on camera a lot.
He's the pro. He's the pro.
Oh man, I yeah. Unfortunately, I guess I am. Yeah.
No, not unfortunately. Like do you choose to be, or like, do you have paparazzi now?
For me, like I think I'm so like committed to the mission of like spreading the good news of Adult Day that I feel like I got to do everything in my power to just educate the world of senior care on what Adult Day is, and how it can help families and their loved ones. So, so for me, it's like, I mean, honestly, like I don't, there's certain parts of creating content that I do enjoy. You know, and I love like conversations and collaborations like this, you know, and I love like working with other people and like, you know, filming behind the scenes stuff. But then other stuff I know I got to do it to kind of spread the message, you know?
Yeah. It's a good way to do that because people then connect with you. You know, you can
Yeah.
see that.
Yeah. And the hard part too is like, you know, like, I know, you know, a lot of times it can be difficult to, you know, like when I think about my schedule, like it's hard to connect with everybody all the time. Like I don't make it to a lot of the conferences, you know, and so, I'm grateful for the handful of relationships that I've been able to build, like, you know, with Gene and Nicole, and some of the people they've introduced me to and stuff. But a lot of times, like, you know, LinkedIn or any of the other social media platforms, like just being able to share our vision and stuff like that is kind of like, you know, ways for me to like communicate and actually build relationships with people that maybe I wouldn't have had the opportunity otherwise, you know?
And I'm here to tell you, like everyone who's listening and Christine, that Chris on video and Chris in person is the same person. So there isn't like this, there isn't the social media Chris and then the real Chris. Like the two are very much the same guy.
So hopefully people like that guy.
Yeah.
You're going to get a lot of them. And thank you. There's 2 segues going on. I don't want to miss either of them. One is that Gene talked about the people listening. And you know what? This is the first time, Amma, I'm meeting you for the first time. I'm really glad that you're listening in too. It sounds like we're just joyfully chatting here. And I know that all 3 of my guests have a depth of information that they will be sharing during this hour. But I do know Bethany Thurman, and I know her very, very well. She is our daughter. So D. Scott Smith, motivational listener, is my husband and producer, and we are the parents of Bethany. And so
That's
we
awesome.
actually hugged her last night. She and her husband live a little more than an hour away, and we got to hug them last evening. And we were at is it Pho restaurant, PHO, and I love the smell that was coming out of it. I'm like, I just really want to go there instead of be the typical taco burger or whatever. And so I'm really glad that both of you are meeting each other in this chat column. The other segue was when you said, Chris, you're saying, I can't get to all the conferences. So at this point, I'm just going to take some sips and say, Gene, you bring something entirely different to this picnic table that we've gathered at virtually today. Nicole, I was admitting to you ladies that I still have, some quirks in my personality that doing this live stream, it kind of brings it up to the surface. And I realize, I don't have it all together just because in the realm of aging, caring, longevity, anti-ageism, whatever, all that continuing on past the threshold of 55 plus when you can move into a different manufactured home community. I don't have it all together. That's why I ask you to come together. And the 3 of you were so excited. There were pictures and everything on LinkedIn in the posts. And I was like, come, tell me about it. What was so wonderful that the 3 of you were in the same place together, actually in 3-dimensional? Just go ahead and talk about it. This is my time to be quiet.
It's all Nicole's fault.
Guilty. Yeah. Yes. I wanted to bring these 2 special people into my world in the sense of when you have relationships with people in this field and you just click and there's this chemistry and you can talk and share and it's, I would say, mutual, right? Where the interest and the care that we have is mutual for each other. So knowing that and knowing them, knowing their heart and their passion and their expertise, I was asked to speak at FSLA and wanted to have them join me because I wanted their perspective, because I value it so much. And so while I'm one piece of that, we all have our lived experience. And so I have my lens on this topic, but they have their lens and their unique perspective that's so incredibly valuable. And I wanted that to like all come together, because I think, when we can bring that together, each of us, then it's just so much more powerful for the audience. So that is like what started it initially.
And they did both come. What does FSLA stand for?
It is the Florida Senior Living Association. There we go.
Yay. For which I qualify. So I just came into this. I mean, I can touch the camera. There we go. I touched the camera. I allowed myself to be on camera and on microphone because last decade I was in person with one person at a time. So I was invited into homes to be of assistance at whatever they wanted to outsource, whatever companionship or being there hand on shoulder was needed. And I kept thinking, well, I didn't know all these people out there. I kept thinking, this needs to be known by people even before they're at the point of what was the name of that care thing that was who had one, when you're just you've gotten a diagnosis. There's been an incident, medical, or you're just the scared adult daughter going, things are changing. I see dominoes falling. What do I do? What do I do? And I just think people need to know about this earlier. And so that's why you're here. And that's what part of why you went to this conference, is that people need to know that there are resources. They need to have an answer, a solution. They've had a stroke. What else can I do besides the one thing that I was told when I was helping them into the car out of the wheelchair at the hospital? What else? There's got to be more. And there is, and then senior living, it's like, do I move in earlier and kind of get used to it when there's not really a crisis going on? Nicole, what were you specifically speaking on from your expertise? Oh, and hello, Joe. He is wonderful. He has been on this a number of times. And he says the dynamic trio. So I hope you have your capes and your, Chris has his glasses on so that no one can recognize him.
It's the I Spy it's the I Spy Activate campaign. I don't know what side it's on. Is it on that side?
There we go. Oh, that's fantastic. Good group to pull together again. Oh no, I didn't do it, Joe. I did not do it. We know that Nicole actually did this, and I just happened to see them with their big smiles and went, what's going on? What did you do? Why?
Well, it would not be possible without these other two. So group effort for sure. Group effort.
Yeah. What did you speak on?
We spoke about how we can shift our perspective in senior living to really understand the family caregiver role and the journey that it takes a family on. And when I say shift the perspective, it's looking at how do we be that guide for families in that first act of life, let's say, rather than waiting till that event or crisis towards that end of move-in. And in the research, when we talk with families, they don't view senior living necessarily as their source of resource information support while they're in the beginning parts of navigating aging with their loved one, or even in the beginning parts of family caregiving. But my view is that I think senior living is a perfect guide. We've got the education, the passion, the expertise, the resource to be able to do that. And so how do we reach the community years prior to that move in necessarily? And there's components to that. It's first understanding the family caregiver. Who are they? What's going on in their world? Having an understanding of the care economy. So in my podcast, we interview not only CEOs and founders and experts and educators, but it's in that caregiving care economy world. And they seem a little separate to me, if I'm being honest. We've got care economy, caregiver support businesses happening, and we've got senior living. And I think there could be such an incredible intersection of the two. And for senior living to have really an understanding of what's happening in the care economy, to be able to guide and direct families to what could be supportive to them. And, I think that if we create that dialogue for how many years prior to be that source of of hope and resource for families, that I think that will play out in those later years when they are looking for care, that there could be that like, oh, okay, you know what, they were so supportive, I learned so much, I was super educated, I had all this information, they directed me to the adult day where I needed support for how many years prior to needing that full-time senior living care, whatever the case may be. And so I think that that is really the premise. And then when we had conversation, Jean brought up so much information in terms of understanding family dynamics and being trauma informed, and I'll let her share more about that. And then Chris with the data of what's happening in the landscape of caregiving and financially, what are our options? What are those resources specifically? The powerful ways that adult day really supports families and can be economically, supportive in that way, as we're having so many challenges, right? As we're figuring out what our next steps are. So that is the gist, and I'm happy to dive a little bit more into any of that. But that was the premise: is how do we shift our thinking, and what can we do, and how can we learn, and how can we grow and show up for families in different ways that maybe we're not doing currently. And some communities are doing it really well. So I want to acknowledge that for sure. But just to have that, like, why isn't that the standard, for senior living to have? Maybe it's a full-time caregiver advocate position at a corporate level where you're reaching families, you've got a larger media presence or whatnot, where you can really make an impact.
I'm so glad that you recognized that it can be that, we're doing what we're doing really well over here. We're over here, in a reaching families, reaching individuals differently. And you're just like, but that whole person, that whole family, whoever it is, I discovered that even if a person was so fiercely individual their entire life, once there is that, I'm just going to say there's a challenge that is recognizable to other people. If you haven't designated someone to care about you as you hit challenges of aging, whatever it may be, diminished sight, it may be arthritis that's not allowing you to take care of your acreage, whatever it is, if you don't already have conversations going with people, there's going to be somebody who's going to look over the fence and go, I care about that person. And they'll come swooping in with very much your concern for you, but you as a person need to be proactive about saying, this will be important to me if I hit this difficulty. Kind of like the directives that you fill out when you're heading into surgery, where they're concerned that you might come to the other end of the surgery with new needs.
Mhm.
Do you prefer this? Do you prefer that? You're going to come to the next phase of your life with new needs, or needs that you have to have a different perspective about. And so rather than be pushing that off of, that's unpleasant, we don't want to talk about that now,
Mhm.
to actually be proactive and go, if that's me. And I got to see that when I was in individual homes. I got to
Mhm.
see the ones who were caring about, and sometimes it wasn't family at all. It was just that neighbor that was concerned and caring and saying, hey, this is a good time to have someone else be sure about you,
Mhm.
that those people are going, I'm learning by watching what is happening now. I'm learning about myself and who I need to contact. Jean, Nicole was talking about you.
Yeah.
And Jean, you know what? You said that you are, that there, I mean, we've heard the word trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it's true. People are afraid to talk about, not all people, but a lot of people have a fear about talking about, what if my health dominoes, my ability to do my own finances, or to make decisions clearly, or to handle those scam calls well, what about, let's just not think about it. Well, things still happen. So
Yeah.
Jean, what do you do, and what did you bring to the Florida Senior Living Association
Oh
conference?
gosh, that's a great question. So the best way to answer that is to go back, I suppose, in terms of where I've been professionally. So as Chris and Nicole know, I started in the long-term care profession in 1989 as a certified nursing assistant at a skilled nursing facility. So this was my way to pay for books and beers while I was getting my bachelor's in social work. And so I literally fell in love with our profession of caring for older Americans, through the bathing, the dressing, the toileting, kind of all those unsavory tasks. I talk about in terms of, the real caregiving, if you will. And so years later, after working on Capitol Hill and advocating for bills such as the Ryan White Care Act, I had an opportunity to go back to graduate school. So I had to think about, in my young career at that time, what was it so far that I really loved about what I've done so far? And it really had to do with that caregiving for older Americans. And so I was living in DC at the time, so I went to the George Washington University and studied to be a licensed nursing home administrator. And once I received my degree and became licensed, I went back to the facility where I was a frontline caregiver as their long-term care administrator. So I had a great opportunity to really understand how to operationalize public policy vis-a-vis nursing home regulations, and how to do a budget, how to market, how to recruit and retain staff, like all of the things that we still talk about as challenges in our long-term care profession today. I was really able to learn from a variety of experts. Um, Fast forward all the way to 2019, or actually it was 2021, my mom had a stroke, and she was my father's caregiver. And overnight, me and my 8 older brothers and sisters became kind of the working staff, if you will, of this in-home nursing home. Because not only did mom need care now because of her stroke, but dad also needed care. So I think Nicole tapped me because I live in both worlds. I've lived in the institutional and community environments of long-term care and assisted livings, but I've also had the opportunity to care for both of my parents before they passed away. And during that time, it just so happened that one of the regulations that nursing homes are interested in having happen in nursing homes is having nursing homes become trauma informed. And when I was a nursing home administrator, Christine, I had no idea what that meant. And so I started really educating myself on what it means to be trauma informed, and have really kind of carved out a niche and understanding that there are so many adversities that older Americans and the people that work with them bring to our communities and bring to family caregiving. So my contribution, I suppose, was to help community providers and long-term care providers that it's not just the senior that moves into your home, it's the entire family that moves into your home with deep and complex family history. So when that daughter is calling you at midnight on your cell phone, and this has happened to me in the past, screaming because mom hasn't been changed for, what seems like the whole shift, and being able to manage that, it's not just about mom being unchanged and having soiled the linens. It's really about all of the family history, the family dynamics, and the trauma that family is experiencing at that time. So really, that was the lens that I brought, is raising that awareness that people come to us, yes, in crisis, but also they bring to that crisis a ton of family trauma typically.
That I can see why you were invited onto that stage, because I just imagine little light bulbs in your audience just going, "Oh, yes." And you bring to my mind, which my boss would say that I was maybe even a little more HIPAA intense than she was, and
Mm,
she was really good, but I mean, I was just like, "I don't want to overstep any boundaries." But that's what I realized coming into a residence. People are coming in and out. Some of them are there overnight, some aren't,
yeah.
and there's quite there's quite a dance when
Mhm.
I'm new. I'm the invader, of trying to, keep things, civil. And then after I've been there a while, things will fly because I'm part of the flow. And I did mention this one time. Someone came to me later and said, "I am so sorry." And my response was helpful. I'm just like, this moment in time is too much for all of you. You were forgiven before that moment. This is just a lot. And then the stories would come out because I'm there, 2, 7, 12 hours.
Mhm.
And the stories of, oh, you, you know, 6 decades ago when this happened, this is how the dynamics and this was, and then we lost one of our siblings, and then,
Mm,
and all these
yeah,
things just
yeah.
pouring out. You are right. It isn't the stroke that, has made things tough. It is those incidences and those just horrible things. And also everyone kind of finding their role. Am I the smoother? Am I the one who goes, head down, and we're filling out this paperwork and we're expediting? Am I the one who's saying, has everyone been well fed? Please eat something because that's going to make me feel better.
Mhm.
There's
Yes.
so much there to be recognized and just go, yeah, we found that. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. I love it too. And honestly, it really has opened up lots of opportunities. And I think I was talking to a couple of organizations just this week about how now, in kind of the zeitgeist that is long term care, it has been long enough since we've been managing COVID-19 and the pandemic on an emergent and urgent basis. It has been long enough now in August of 2023 that we are now looking back as caregivers. And I see this a lot in the frontline caregivers that I work with in nursing homes, that they're starting to put language around what happened to them during the pandemic and what they endured. And they're starting to put stories around what they endured. And they're starting to put, most importantly, sensations around that. And what I mean by sensations is that they're understanding the impact of what COVID-19 and the pandemic had on their bodies. And so one of the things that we've talked about, or I've talked about to them, is that it's a really important right now to work with senior care leaders, with families, with frontline caregivers around this notion of trauma-informed care and trauma healing. And knowing that we just left a really horrible, unprecedented situation. And the example that I give, and I've talked to Nicole and Chris about this to see if this even bears weight or if it makes sense to them as I talk about it, is that when the camps after World War II were liberated, and individuals that were coming out of those camps were moving to Sweden and moving to the United States, none of them said to one another, "Oh my gosh, we just survived the Holocaust." It took a while for that word to even come into being. It took a while for us to knit together as a society what it was that actually happened to them. It took a while for us to listen to stories and to believe them because they were so horrific. And I do think that we're at a very similar time, not to the kind of the level of the Holocaust, but we are at an unprecedented time where the people that were directly involved, namely those on the front line, are starting to put language, story, and sensation around it. So it's very important to talk about it, the trauma that they endured and the trauma that they brought to this situation initially, so that everybody can get on a very productive path to healing.
Wow. Bethany Thurman is championing you, and she understands what you are about and the importance of this. And I've never heard of that, putting a narrative on the sensations of surviving and maybe being having some survivor guilt because the other person died due to COVID and this person didn't. We had a planetary attack, and that puts everybody, in that urgent, emergent spot. This reminds me, AARP, I signed both my husband and I up pretty soon after we were the right age. And they send out a veterans report if you ask for it. So I get it as an email. Did you happen to see, was it Ho Chi Minh that was Vietnam? There's a gathering of individuals who were liberated from a camp there. And that one person, I believe, is gathering kind of the stories from a different perspective, that a lot of those individuals either came home to a girlfriend, fiance, or wife, or when they came into what was now their place to live because they survived in internment. What the love of another person has done in their healing. It's just, and what they said was, surprisingly, there are this many of these gentlemen that are still alive today. And I thought, that sentence in itself, that it's surprising that they physically survived, mentally survived, emotionally are able to express just all of it. Oh, this is so important. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Nicole, you got blamed for bringing these guys together. This is
so
amazing.
lucky. I'm so lucky.
Okay,
know,
so
they're the
Chris,
best. Yeah.
yes. Are you surviving in your car? It's over 100 degrees.
It's cooled
Do
down. It's cooled down.
okay, good. Um, Adult day, boy, do I know that because that was part of my world as well last decade. Of the one that I was closest to was Corvallis, or the one that I even knew existed. Again, someone hired me and said, "You could be a caregiver," and I'm like, "What is a caregiver? What are you talking about?" Like working in a nursing home. They're like, "No, no, no. There's more to it."
Yeah.
I learned. You're talking about educating people at the conference. What did you say? And is it the same as what you're usually having to tell people about, or was the audience so different there that you got to maybe bring out something different?
So, I think, because my previous experience is in the world of assisted living. So, like, I started, in assisted living in 2011. My wife, Chelsea, and I moved into a small,
Mm.
residential assisted living facility. We lived in the assisted living facility for 3.5 years, and we were from, I was from the world of finance. So when I came into this field, like, I had no idea what it was all about, and so as I was learning about, SNFs, skilled nursing facilities, ALFs, MC, memory care, all these like different terminologies and these acronyms and like all of this, like, like this stuff that's related to the world of like senior care. I found myself like just as confused as every family member that walked through our door. And so I ended up, creating this booklet that we would use for our family members when they would come and, tour with us. And it was Florida's 5-step guide to senior care. And step one was like, just, basically, being prepared, knowing like what your options are, that you have caregiver support groups available to you, that like, that it's okay, like, what are some signs that, your mom or your dad or your spouse might be having, maybe a change in their cognitive abilities or their physical abilities. What could those things be? Number two was like organizing your legal affairs. Number three was making a financial plan. Number four was like understanding your care options at home or your housing options. And then lastly was like, where do you go to even find all of these different things? And so, I know for the sake of like, maybe my like small contribution to, the conversation that we had at FSLA, it was more about like, what can we do to advocate on behalf of our families outside of just like ensuring their loved ones needs are being met in the community. Like, how else are we supporting them? Because I always felt like every time we met with the family, we walked them through these 5 steps. So I know when they went on a tour with us, they're leaving, they're like, okay, they should probably go talk to this elder law attorney. Okay, they need to go, verify their long-term care insurance. Okay, now they know like, the what assisted living costs, how it works. And so like I always, felt like, really when they would come into tour, it wasn't just about like selling them on our community. It was like, are they prepared when they leave here to go make decisions about their loved one, regardless of whether or not they need us. So I think like in Nicole, when she, first, brought this to my attention, I felt like that was kind of like the angle in which that I was able to contribute towards the vision, that they had, or kind of like maybe the category, the topic, I guess, of this like particular session.
Did you feel like you were the first? It's like, why doesn't this already exist on at least a statewide level or a national level? Why isn't there a handbook for how do you do this?
Right.
How do you
I know.
continue? How do you
Yeah.
continue living? How do you love your person who is maybe 30 years older than you are, and love them intelligently and
Right.
and with information? It's not that you're dumb, it's that you just haven't
This
found
world
this
is so,
information.
yeah, and then the world, and it's so confusing. Like the hard part is like, it's like, if you go talk to the elder law attorney, or if you go talk to like, this caregiver, if you go talk to this other person, the problem is like every single one of these people have different experiences or have like different opinions. So there's not like a clear roadmap. Like for us, like the 5-step guide, not everyone needed everything in it, but it provided like clarity as to like, okay, all right, step 1, do I have what of these items applies to me, and have I like done that yet? And then step 2, like some of these I might have already taken care of, but maybe I hadn't thought about this other thing. Like, okay, let me take care of that. And so like every step provided like basically kind of like a guide as to, 1, have they already taken care of that? 2, maybe they hadn't even thought about it. 3, what is this thing, and how can it benefit them, along their caregiving journey? So,
yeah, I championed that. I kept writing scribbling little notes, and throwing them in my bag, because, I went from place to place, had my little lunch, sometimes eating it in the car between times, and all that. And it's just like, somebody ought to do something. People need to know. I don't want this information to like die out when I'm done with this. So,
yeah.
oh my goodness.
And I think that's,
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that's, I think, the magic of our partnership with Chris, Nicole, and me is that each of us brought such a unique perspective, and we have such deep respect for one another and our contributions to the field of aging and supporting family caregivers that, the story definitely is the content that we develop, but the story also is really finding like-minded professionals in the field that can share your vision and really start crafting something that may be like another alternative for families and for senior living communities. As Nicole said, the original premise is really having senior living communities become that repository, like build those relationships well before you're in crisis management. And start elevating yourself as experts so that families come to you prepared and not so much in crisis mode.
Even what Chris was saying, the MC and the SNFs, and people are just like, what, who, where, what do I'm already not,
Well, I can't say how many like families would like come into our community and they'd be like, oh yeah, mom's got talk to the lady today, and mom's got 100 days in the skilled nursing facility, and like everyone would think that, and I would be like, there's a good chance it's probably not 100 days. I know they approve up to 100 days, but it could be a month, it could be 60 days, and these would be those like little key things that they're like, they just wouldn't know, and then like all of a sudden 30 days later they would be calling like, oh my gosh, Chris, like they're discharging her this week, like we don't have a room ready, and like it's just like you constantly find yourself like trying to advocate on behalf of these families that maybe other people in the industry maybe don't have like the full picture of the industry yet, or they're new to it, or maybe they're not aware of how to like help someone from a comprehensive level that can kind of oversee the full spectrum of like needs that they may have, or warn them about something that may come to fruition that they maybe weren't aware of, and a lot of times they don't know how, like what's the difference, how many people don't know the difference between Medicare versus Medicare Advantage plans, or or they have an insurance card and they're like, oh yeah, like I got Medicaid, but it's like, is it Medicaid or is it Medicare? They don't know the difference, and it's like helping them like just understand like what these things are, like, and it adds that value, and then like you become a trusted partner, and they believe in trust in you, and then ultimately by just helping them out, they're like, hey, we're gonna pick that place when mom needs help, and just because the people there were so knowledgeable, helpful, and friendly that they weren't trying to sell me on the suite with a private bathroom. Like they were worried about do I have all the information I need to make decisions for my loved one.
Yeah. And I think that comes with, like Chris was saying, having an awareness, right? You have to have an understanding of what's happening in the care economy, what caregiver support businesses are available, what experts can guide and have support groups or whatnot, so that you can direct those families appropriately based on their need. And just to have your hand on the pulse of what's happening, have an awareness of that.
And I think what we're finding, at least Nicole, Chris, and I have found, is that It's not that there's resistance for these senior living communities to become that repository of all things senior living and all things aging. It's just that their mission and their business is a little bit different. So as Nicole mentioned, kind of at the top of the call, there's this entire ecosystem that's building up around acute care, long-term care, post-acute care, assisted living, and we're a part of that. And so we are kind of having our own slice of the pie, if you will, to do our own one woman and one man show on how to educate. So Chris does his amazing videos on what he's doing with Active Age. Nicole does her amazing podcast with Will Gather. And I, in the fall, will be launching what's called the Elder Care Academy, which is 4 long Sunday afternoons at the Jewish Community Center with all individuals in the Omaha community that want to learn about long-term care. And so it's a deep dive into...
Go, Gene.
Yeah. I love the teaching component. I've been an adjunct at the Department of Gerontology at UNO. So really understanding, as we used to say in Washington, how the sausage gets made. I think that's really important for our older adults so that when they're in that bed, they know exactly what's happening to them and who the people are that are coming in and out of their room, coming in and out of their apartment. As Chris or Nicole mentioned, or maybe it was you, Christine, like they have 100 days, but they only got 4. Why? You know, there's really specific regulatory reasons why the person only got 4. But when you're the consumer, you don't know. So our aim is to ensure that consumers do know. And so we're trying to build that own self-advocacy and agency within our older adults we serve.
That reminds me, you said Active Age. So all of you have a little more going on than just one thing. So starting now, because of the minutes we have left, thank you for this full hour, all 3 of you sculpting this moment out when you could have been doing some other things. This replay is going to help my daughter, Bethany Thurman, all the replays, archives, she's going to be going back through there going, yep, things are happening with mom and dad. What was that resource? So I'm giving those. This is my gift to our daughter, who she and her husband have already expressed that they are on alert. It's like, are you kidding? And I'm like, yeah, I'm kidding. Okay, good. I wanted to make sure you didn't have a TIA, and just they're ready. They're ready. And I want them to have this information and be able to get to it. Oh, she's so much better at technology than I am. I mean, she can get stuff and move, get things going on. So let's start with you, Chris, to give us all those links, or maybe there's one spot to go to find all things Chris and what he has to say about Adult Day, which in my realm of knowing, it's the place that will accept your loved one between maybe 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., just a ballpark, Monday through Friday. We'll accept them, we'll engage them, we'll make sure that personal needs are met. Safety is covered, but also there's, some hopping things going on. They might be cooking, they might be singing, they might, just be, have the opportunity to see others there that they've seen before. So let's start with you and then go to Nicole and end with Eugene, just giving us those links that we can go to, anything that you recommend, that you've written, that you want us to be watching for, so that we've got resources that will help us find the resources so that we know what questions to ask to find the solutions that we're going to need for our aging loved ones, for people who have challenges for our kids so they can take care of us, or whoever we designate to watch out for us and go, are you kidding? Or did you? Okay. Because you're kind of scaring me there for a second. And that's just our conversations. They're going to hear about aging all the time as I continue to age. Chris, go right ahead.
Yeah, so if someone was interested in learning more about Active Age as like an organization and like the services we provide, they could go to Active Age Care, and it's active with no E, so it's ACTIVAGE care.com. And then it has all the information about what we do and how we can help adult children taking care of their mom and dad, or spouses taking care of their loved ones, or anyone else that just wants to have a little fun during the day and would enjoy a little socialization. But yeah, we do all those things that you mentioned, Christine, and we help families and their loved ones out in all those ways. Live music every day. The goal is to have fun every day, but at the same time, we're meeting those personal care needs. But then, if someone was interested in starting their own adult day center, or were interested in a franchise opportunity with Active Age, they could go to adcpro.com, and that's where we have all of our educational information. Of like how to start an adult day center. We have over 400 videos on YouTube about how to start your own adult day center, as well as ways that we could help someone learn about the Active Age opportunity. So that's Alpha Delta Charlie adcpro.com. But that's it. That's all I got.
Alpha Delta Charlie. Were you in the military?
Well, I'm a pilot, so I always have that that pilot lingo in my head, So
I know more about Chris Tanna than ever before. This is great. Oh my goodness. Nicole,
thank
are
you,
you?
Christine.
Oh, absolutely. Nicole, what about you?
Yeah, so I have Will Gather, which is really a source of enhancing that well-being for older adults, families, healthcare professionals. So we do that through our podcast. You're able to find us online at willgatherpodcast.com. You can also visit willgather.com, and that's kind of the hub for everything we do. And we also have a boutique caregiver gift shop, which raises awareness and funds for family caregivers, specifically respite care, named Gigi Betty Co. after my grandma, who my family and I cared for when I was growing up. So I merged my two worlds together, senior living, family caregiving, and it's such a great place to show the person and caregiver in your life that you're thinking of them and you want to do something thoughtful.
And Gigi Betty Co. is like the Kendra Scott of like the senior care jewelry space,
Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah. It's so fun. Thank you.
Fun.
That's good, Chris.
Fun. Yay. And Jean, what about, maybe I should ask you.
Yeah.
Do you talk to people anywhere, or are you more regional?
I go anywhere. So it's almost like I planted that question with you to promote what I want to do. So my business is new. It's so new that I don't even have a website yet, but I'm working on that with a website developer. But I'm kicking around the idea of my business called Radical Sabbatical, because we know that when family caregivers become family caregivers, many of them, mostly women, leave their full-time positions like I did to assume the caregiving role. And so I really wanted what I was experiencing with my family and with my parents to be something unique. So I came up with this idea that I was on a radical sabbatical. And quite frankly, it really does align with the trauma healing journey that I've been on personally. And so my main goal right now is to bring the language of trauma-informed care, and again, the language, the stories, the sensations, to frontline caregivers so that they can start on their own paths to healing, not just because of the pandemic, but because of some potential adversities that have happened in their lives. Mm-hmm. So I do keynotes, I do breakouts, I do trainings. So the way
We lost Jean for a minute.
I was waiting to make sure because
know.
sometimes it comes back.
Mhm.
I know it was
But
funny. It was funny because I was like, all right, Nicole's nodding, Christine's taking a drink. I'm still here. I'm like, okay,
You're
I
like,
was
it's
like,
not
wiggle,
me.
wiggle.
I
Yeah.
didn't know. I was like, I didn't know what was happening.
I know. And I'm just
I
like,
know it was
look at her
me.
face. She really has something that she needs to say. So I will take the
That's hilarious.
opportunity for two things.
Oh,
One,
Uh,
if she comes back in, I'll be quiet.
she
okay.
just texted us. I don't know.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
But she said she's got an internet issue.
Oh
Oh,
no.
Okay.
we can, people can find her on
All right.
LinkedIn and connect with her. I know that.
That's for
Yeah.
sure. Oh my goodness. So radical sabbatical. And
Well,
she also said Jewish community or Jewish.
Mhm. The elder
And I'm
care.
just going,
Yeah.
I get that. I get the Sabbat. I get that it isn't, kick back and paint your toenails and, nobody bother me, but it is a really intentional restoration. So rest, but
Mhm.
restoration, like
right.
rising again to maybe go a different direction or whatever. And people, if you haven't gone through any trauma in your life, maybe you need to have your own talk show where nothing ever has gone wrong. But
Right.
the rest of us have had adversities, things that make living hard.
Mhm.
And so I'm so grateful that all of you came
Thank you.
today. My husband just popped
Thank you
something
for
up on
having
the
us.
screen. I'm supposed to say this,
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
convergence-experience.com. I'm supposed
All
to say
right.
that. I'm doing this, what do I call it? In person. My husband said, you love going to conferences. Why don't you have one? So I am. And it's coming up in like a month and a half or so.
That's
So,
awesome.
and I'm doing it right here, right in my community. And I'm approaching it very differently. And people are just being very nice and coming on board as speakers and allowing me to do something very unusual as far as getting demographics from junior high kids to people that have been alive for a very long time coming together in conversation. So some of it's typical listen and some of it is otherwise. Chris has to get to his next destination.
You caught me, Christine.
Wow.
You caught me.
Thank you so much for having us. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, thank you so
so
much, Christine.
glad. Yeah, I'll post this out and you can get all of your how to get a hold of me information into that posting as well. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you just came to talk to me today. And I'm thrilled that you are all doing amazing things together that I've not heard of before.
Thank you.
Getting two realms to intersect as they should because they do anyway. So
Yeah. Thank
cool.
you. Thank you for having us.
Awesome, Christine. Hey, thank you so much.
Bye-bye,
Appreciate you.
guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.